In this video, I want to take a few minutes to walk through the final portfolio in a more specific way. So on our homepage right now, you'll see that at the bottom you have a couple different links. You can submit the final portfolio by Monday, 3 December. This link will take you to the assignment. And clicking on this link, you'll see the directions here. And the very first thing I want to draw your attention to is the formatted template. I'm going to download that template here and open it in just a second. Remembering now, this final portfolio has at least 2 pieces, perhaps more, but basically it's a 2 to 3 page minimum explanation and reflection of the changes you might make to revised documents. So in this way, you get to choose at least one document you've written as a rhetorical analysis or project, revise it, and tell me how that revision and the work you've done throughout the semester together demonstrate what your final grade should be. So here, when you download the final portfolio formatted template, you'll see a bunch of information here. And I've gone through this paper in a very specific way to kind of guide you. And it might not be as long as my double-spaced here because I have a lot of lists, but it might be as much as 5 pages for some people. In the background introduction, you seek to accomplish the following. You want to make sure you connect back to your introductory discussion board post in which you answer those 2 questions I asked about what you think you're going to learn in this class and how do you think about writing right now. And my question really is, well, I asked you that question 12 weeks ago. How do you think about those questions now? Do you have different answers in light of the things we've done? Do those differences or similarities, if things haven't changed, connect to how you experienced your learning in the class? And so that kind of ties into the second part, summarizing what you learned this semester. So, whether you're writing about your sense of writing or about your writing in general, there's not really a box here for you to check off. I just want you to tell me, what did you learn? And if you feel like you didn't learn anything or you didn't learn something, be critical here. This is a good time to be critical. Be honest in what you're trying to write here. You don't need to blow hot air, as it were. And then also summarize the kinds of labor you put into the semester. I'm curious to know, how did you attend to this class? How did you make time for it? How did you collaborate with me, with others, with peers? How did you, for instance, take care to make sure you submitted work on time or early? How did you use my office hours or exchange emails with me or even communicate with me? Did we ever even talk or meet? If we didn't, why didn't we? What was the cost of that to you in not communicating or to your writing or not asking questions? So this is kind of the framework, right? Then you want to identify which documents you revised and discussed below, that is down here, and noting what aspects of your writing you're going to talk about. So below, I talk about rhetorical analysis 1 and 2 in project 1, so I can show you how I learned to revise about topics A and B and C, or writing ideas A and B, or practice my discussion of rhetoric, whatever that is. And then end with a sentence or 2 that explains, in light of all of this, or therefore, I want to argue here or show you here why I deserve the score of an A- or B+ or A, whatever that is. And so that's what this first paragraph and a half might be. And this might be a sentence or 2 for each one of these. It might be a sentence or 3. I don't know. Very first thing to do, though, is definitely go to File, definitely go to Save As, and save it as your own. Put your name into it. Double click in the header here, and you can change your last name here. And all of a sudden, once you've done that, the pagination's already set up for you. It'll change your last name as you need to, and start filling this in. It's already double spaced. The tabs are already set for you, so really the document's already labeled. You'll change the title here. If you don't want to call it background, you don't have to. I've just labeled these parts for utility's sake. So the before and after section, this is the real meat of the document, if you will. You should begin with a prefatory paragraph that introduces what's going to happen. Below I discuss my rhetorical analysis 1 and 2, as well as project 2, for instance, to showcase the kinds of writing choices I made in my previous drafts, as well as my latest draft. So this is my language here. If it helps you to model, you're welcome to use it too. I mean, if you looked at rhetorical analysis 3 and 4, you'd want to say that, or project 1, etc. So in these revisions, I was able to, and then tell me what it is that you thought you saw, that you thought you did, or you thought you improved. And this is your introduction to this section. And then a subsection here. So if revised document 1. So if this is, you're going to talk about rhetorical analysis 2 revisions, great, call it that, and tell me that. Let me know, but that's the idea here. And you'll do the same thing if you revise a second document, and if you did a third document, etc., etc. So there are at least 4 things you need to do in order to receive credit here for the extra credit opportunity, right? You need to identify at least 2 ways your new draft is an improved draft. You need to list what steps you took to revise it. You need to quote in-text comments or feedback that guided you, that told you, oh, I should probably look at this, whether from me, one of our graduate assistants, or one of your peers. You want to make sure you list the original rubric scores for the assignment and state what scores your new draft warrants in light of your changes. And then on top of that, include any other notes you might think are relevant, right? If you fail to include all 4 of these features, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will not receive that extra credit. And just as an aside here, in the learning contract, I offer you the opportunity to do extra work throughout the semester to show that you're interested in your writing. And some of you have taken me up on that, in which case you don't really have to do more than one document here. If you haven't taken that opportunity, though, that's why we have this last 3-week period. You have the opportunity to include in your course some additional work. And here, why not think about what you can do to showcase your learning through these 3 revision opportunities. If you don't do that, though, it doesn't really satisfy that requirement. So coming back, here's an example. I've written a quick paragraph here of probably, let's see how long this is. This is about 250, 270 words of me explaining one change that I made. So I made up a text here. In my rhetorical analysis of blank, I made a series of choices that undermine the quality, etc. On my draft, I wrote, and here you can see I gave a quote from my original draft, and then I showed how that I revised it later on down here to make some sort of difference. I also put a note in here from the actual feedback my instructor gave me, so it's very clear. Here was the original. Here's the feedback I was given, and based on that, I tried to revise it to improve it, and then I go on to explain why it is that's helpful, in this new draft here. And so we have at least these 3 elements, right? We're trying to satisfy one way I've changed it, a step I took, quoting in-text comments and the original draft, so I can show what actually is there, and it's easier to understand what's going on. And then also the old scores for the rubrics, right? And then also the new scores for the rubric, for at least 2 of them, because I didn't change much for rhetoric or for evidence or for mechanics, right? And I quote the rubrics here to show why it is that's the case, because I've done these things. And so I'm really trying to make the argument, and it takes about a half a page or maybe a full page of work to explain what you changed and why. But notice how much of that is quoting, right? The original quote, the quote from the advice, the quote from my new revision that I've already made, and then a quote from the rubric, and all of that ties it together. So you're trying to articulate that. And if you do that for 1 draft or 2 drafts or 3 revisions, it's up to you. The final piece, that cumulative piece, that is what my semester's efforts in revision demonstrate and my final course grade. We'll add that ampersand there. Here you need to explain how the above revisions that you walk me through actually show that you learned something about writing or your writing process. So it's not just I learned how to revise. Well, okay, great. Why is that useful to you? Or if you learned about plain style, or if you learned about pathos, what is useful about that to you as you go forward? We're not trying to just learn to fill a box here. That doesn't really help you go forward. Try to tie this idea to your future. That is, state how this learning can have an effect on your future writing or coursework. Reference all the kinds of labor you committed to the class, where you succeeded, where you fell short, where you could have done better, you think. Situating, and here's the important part, in the framework of the learning contract, because the idea here is you're trying to tell me what your final grade should be. And so as you pull open the learning contract and look at that in our course Canvas, and you'll remember that you can always go to our course and see that over in the syllabus page. There's a link back to the learning contract, and when you see that, these are the kinds of things you're being asked to do: to attend to class, to collaborate, to submit minimally competent work on time, making sure that you take advantage of office hours, whether in person or not, and making sure that you satisfy all those basic requirements. So how did you do that? How did you satisfy the course requirements? And in light of all that, what grade do you deserve? If you submitted all your work on time, or maybe had 1 or 2 late things, you deserve a B. Great. If you deserve more than a B, though, why? What is it you did? Or if you did less than you're supposed to do, what grade should you have? You should be responsible for your grade here. Do you deserve a C+ because you turned in late work? What is it that you've lost here because you didn't turn in work every single time on time? If you're missing work, that means you can't actually get higher than a D. So if you're missing any rhetorical notes, rhetorical analyses, or your project papers, that's final drafts, not rough drafts. We can look past those for the moment. Then okay, if you didn't do the peer reviews also, what effect did that have on your work? So you're trying to be really comprehensive here as you think about that. But basically, I want to know, what grade do you think you deserve based on the learning contract and the work you did and what you learned in the class? Below all that, you'll include your actual revised document. So whatever your new draft looks like, go ahead and copy and paste it in the bottom here, label it so I know what it is. So if this was rhetorical analysis 4, I'm going to label that rhetorical analysis 4 revised, and that tells me I can look at this and see the kinds of changes you made that you discuss up here in the revision section. So this is a bit of labor, and this is why you get 3 weeks. You could do this in a couple days sitting down if you want to do it right now. I definitely recommend that you do it though in terms of having a conversation with me or a peer tutor so we can talk about what steps you might take. You don't want to just start editing, start revising and turn it in and make the same choices you already made. Well, you know how that goes, so it's already happened. So go ahead, review the directions here, see what questions you have, and email me as you have questions. I'll be here scoring your posters and getting those back to you as well. But remember, you need to revise at least 1 document, and you can choose up to 3.